Welcome back, everybody, to the Men of the Kingdom podcast. My name is Kyle. This is my co-host, Aaron. We are super excited to be back on the show. We were just talking beforehand that it just feels different. I don't know. There's like an energy in the room. We're like pumped, ready to go. We're listening to music beforehand. We're just amped up, ready to go. And I think the episode that we're going to be talking about today is probably one of the more relevant episodes that we could be talking about. I think people are really going to resonate with this. And I'm just super excited to get into it. But before that, how are you, Aaron? I just want to hear how you're doing, man.
Yeah,
it's
bro.
good to see you.
I'm doing good. You know, for those of you watching, 4 is my lucky number. I don't know if you can see the ice. Shout out to the lady for the Valentine's present, but
very cool.
4 is my lucky number. We're on episode number 4. That's got to be some good juju. I'm super pumped. I can't wait.
It is super crazy. Yeah, we were talking beforehand again, just like it's already episode 4, and we record these episodes usually every other week, which is just crazy to think that we're already in episode 4 because I feel like time has flown by.
Yeah.
Literally feels like yesterday this whole thing was a concept, just like, you know what, we should start a podcast. And now we're here, episode 4, so congratulations to you and myself.
Yeah, shout out to you, man.
Many more to come, and I'm excited to talk about the things we're going to talk about tonight. So
you got it.
With no further ado, tonight's topic of discussion, the F word, friendship.
Wow.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of angles we're going to take with this. I'm going to let Aaron kick it off, but I think we all can agree that friendship is very important in relationships, and it's not always the easiest to achieve or to come about. Like, we all want those close, intimate relationships where we can just share life with and the things that really matter to us. So we're going to explore a lot of different angles today around the area of friendship, hopefully support it with good scriptural documentation, and also some studies that we found that people nowadays have done on relationships and friendships. So, Aaron, I'm going to kick it to you, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of scripture to be diving into here, and I think this is just a natural spot for, we've been sharing a lot of resources, because I know that when we're preparing for this, it's not just knowledge out of our head. Obviously, we want it to be biblical, and there's good ways to do that. So I want to give a shout out to our main man, Tony Evans.
The man.
If you're watching this is the Tony Evans Study Bible. Highly recommend this bad boy. So I just got this thing this last weekend, and could not recommend it more. It's really cool, not just because it has big print, which makes it a little easier to read.
Yeah, in our old age, the eyes aren't as good.
In my old age, at least. And it has commentary, though. So he breaks down, and in some Bibles like that, the commentary is just kind of more details. But this is like stuff that he's preached about, and Tony Evans is awesome. So that helped me find some scripture here. I will start with, I think, I referenced Genesis before, but I think I'm going to go back there again. So, first book in the Bible, the story of creation. So, literally Genesis 2. So, the second chapter in the entire Bible. We're in verse 18 here. So, then the Lord said, "It is not good for man to be alone." And I'm not going to read the whole rest of it. You guys can read through it if you want to, but I think that's a great place to start, because that's literally the story of creation. And the first thing that God says about man is that it's not good for him to be alone.
Yeah.
So I think that means that God really values friendship, and that's why it's so important in our life. So I think that's a great tone setter.
Yeah, it really is. And I think what's important to remember when you look at life and the way we live, we're supposed to be a reflection of God, and there's a lot you can get into when you look at like marriage. How is that a reflection of God's relationship with us? And it's the same thing with friendship. God loves us, and he wants us to have a relationship. And it's the same thing with human to human. No doubt. Like, we are designed to love and be in community and relationship with people. So I think that's really good. And it's interesting that that's so early on in the Bible, before Eve was created. Yeah. And it just kind of shows, like, man, if Adam, who is literally in the garden with God, and still God is still saying it's not good for man to be alone, it just kind of speaks. And that was more in a, husband to wife type relationship, man to woman. I think it's relevant for friendships today too. So
totally.
On the topic of friendship, we've both teed up a lot of different questions we want to ask each other. And I kind of want to start with this angle because I think a lot of us can relate to it. Last episode that we'll link here too, we talked about the impact of like social media and how much time we spend on our phone. So I was doing some research around relationships, and it's crazy. It says 1 in 5 millennials say they are lonely and have no friends. 1 in 5, that's 20% of people, which is crazy.
Heartbreaking.
Because, we literally live in an era with the most social media, the most ability to be connected through our phones, but people still feel lonely. And there's a lack of intimate connection. Like, you can have 20,000 Instagram followers and they know nothing about you. They might follow you for various reasons that are healthy or may not be healthy, but there's nothing that can substitute the intimate relationship of a close friend, someone you can share life with, share your secrets, your pain, things you've been through. So I wanted to kick it off there. How do you think social media today, from personal experience, from people you've seen, is impacting the relationships people have? More so from the friendship side and the ability to connect. I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that, because I think there's a lot that people can improve on, including myself, I'm sure too. But I want to kind of start there and how you think that affects people.
All right, bro. That's good. That's really good. Okay, I'm going to hit you with an analogy.
Oh, I like the analogy.
I would say that social media is like the fast food of friendship. If you're hungry, you can hop on Facebook, you can like a couple pictures, you can throw a quick emoji in the comment, you can maybe even send a quick message, but that's not connection.
Right.
Just like we know fast food isn't food. Might fill you up for a short amount of time, but it's not real food. So, boom, how you like that?
That's a pretty good answer. I wasn't expecting that.
No, that's just what comes to mind. I think that it gives the illusion of connection because you're seeing what people are doing, but yeah, I just think that, especially too, I've almost noticed that like in my parents' age people, I think it might be worse, where I remember a lot of times when I was young having family members call our house and having people over in person, which obviously COVID has made that tough, but I think that there's a lot of times where maybe we were more closely like connected to actually people's lives before social media,
right,
where now we would feel like we are, but in actuality, maybe we're not,
like
just because we see a lot of their pictures. But
the illusion of connecting, or whatever you said, that was good, or illusion of friendship.
Right. It's just quick, fast, like what you put into that is what you get out. And we both know it takes 5 seconds to comment on a picture.
Yeah. And to tie it to a more, and it's about to go to a new level.
Yeah, let's go. Can't wait.
We've both done a lot of study around like pornography and like sexual addiction and stuff. And one thing that's dangerous about pornography, the reason it's so addicting, and this is, I'm going to tie the two together, and I feel good about this.
Yeah, let's go.
Men have a innate desire to reproduce. And so when you watch pornography and you're doing that things, you give your brain the signal like, oh man, we're sleeping with all these beautiful women.
Sure.
But in reality, you're sitting at home alone by yourself.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing. Same thing with friendship. We have a desire to be in relationship with people. That is literally why we're designed. God literally said it in Genesis 2.
Right.
It is not good for man to be alone. But when you're going through Instagram, scrolling Facebook, again, you're given the illusion, man, I got all these friends because I have 1,500 people following me.
Yeah.
When in reality, only about 15 of those, you know their names. They actually know where you're from. So you're giving yourself the illusion, man, I have all these friends. I'm really doing well in relationship category. But at the end of the day, when you're sitting home alone, you feel empty inside.
No doubt.
The two are very similar. And I think it's the same on your brain that you think, man, I'm really making these connections. I'm doing well. But it's not. It's an illusion, like you said. I really like that. I haven't heard it put that way, but I think it's probably the truest statement there. That was really good.
Yeah. And kind of last point on the train we're on here is something I've always thought was interesting is that Jesus obviously preached to big crowds,
right,
but he had 12 disciples.
Very close circle.
Right? Yeah, like there's influencers nowadays that have millions of followers and a fraction of the influence that Jesus had. And that's just kind of what comes to mind is that I think that they say that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes or whatever. Success leaves clues. There's a lot of ways it can be said.
Yeah.
I think that everything that Jesus did was to teach us, and he had 12 disciples. And basically, at the end of his life, when he was resurrected, he looked back at all these guys, most of which had turned their backs on him, said, Lord, Lord, we will not betray you. They pretty much all did.
Right.
And he comes back and he's looking at the B squad here, and he's saying, hey, you guys are the guys that are going to spread this gospel throughout my whole world. So I think we can learn a lot from that, too.
No doubt.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah, you said something there that really stuck to me, and it was the word influence. When you explore your motivations around social media, and I'm not saying social media is bad in and of itself. It can be used for a lot of good things, but I think a lot of people, even literally there's people called influencers. That is what their title is, and they do stuff. They get a lot of followers. You want to influence someone, invest time in their life, get to know them, go through pain, struggle. That's the ultimate form of influence.
The original influencer.
The original influencer. Literally. I think that is a really good point. We all want to come across better than we are on social media. And we'll get away from social media. This is not the whole thing about social media, but I think it's relevant. Your true influence will come to the people, from the people, and you will be able to influence people that you're truly investing in. You can post the coolest photos in the world, and that's all fun and dandy. But if you're not truly investing in someone, your influence is only going to be surface level deep.
That's great.
So we've kind of established friendships are important. I think we can all agree to that. But I think a question a lot of our listeners will have, and I want to kind of talk about is, okay, we know that's important. How do I make friends? Mm-hmm. What do I look for? How do you go about that? It's like, okay, I see my bank account says $0. I need a job. Yep. How do I go about doing it?
Sure.
So on the topic of friendship, for you, those people who don't know, Aaron's a very social guy. He connects well with people. People just love him. He's a good guy to be around. So in developing your relationships, how would you advise someone to start making friends? What are some things you look for? And kind of take me down that trail.
Yeah. Well, in the spirit of tying this back to Scripture, I appreciate the love. That made me feel good. Gave me that same dopamine hit that the Instagram likes do.
Now you don't have to go talk to anyone for a week.
Yeah, you got it. But I guess, too, just like the Bible said, those who are exalted will be humbled. Those who are humbled will be exalted. So trying to kind of blend. I don't want to deflect that compliment because I appreciate that, and it is true. But I also don't want to give our viewers the wrong idea. I've been lonely a lot of times in my life. I've had times where I've had a million friends that I was going out with on the weekends, and we're hanging out, and then come hardship in life, I felt like, what the heck? Most of these people aren't around. Right. But I do think for the most part, I have been very blessed with a lot of great friends. So your question, how would you go about making those friends? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
And what you look for?
The question. Okay. Well, maybe we'll take the second part. What do you look for? But how do you go about meeting people? Where should you go about meeting people?
Sure.
Maybe is a good one.
Yeah, it is good. So I guess for me, when I think about friendship, I moved to a new town in 7th grade, which is a really hard time to move because all the kids have been through elementary school, and that's junior high, like max awkwardness. And that's really sucked. But I think that a lot of those things I learned through that was that, you can connect with new people, and it can be scary, and you can be awkward and still make a great group of friends.
No doubt.
So I think that's one step, is that you do have to be okay with being uncomfortable. There's just no way around it. Like, until you know people, it's going to be kind of weird.
Yeah.
But once you get to know them, it won't be weird. Right. Like, thinking back to you and I when we first knew each other, it was like very like, oh, hey, Kyle, how you doing? And now we're just like,
my brother, we live together now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So I think that that's a big thing, is that a lot of times, especially once you get some friends, you're like, I have a few friends. I maybe don't need to meet anybody new. And part of it is you just have to be okay with that awkward little part. And then another thing I'll add is that something I've heard before is that friendships are built in 2-minute increments. And I just think back to people that I've met where our relationship started, knew they were cool, but maybe I just saw them in passing. But just those situations where you're like, I could go up and talk to that person, or I could just leave church, or, go home, or leave the gym, or wherever you might be meeting people. Right. That voice in your head is just fear. And I think that that's a big part, is just being intentional. Like, even just having the goal and maybe writing down. I think we recommended this before, but I just think a huge key in life is just knowing what you're looking for. So it's like, what do you want in your friends? Like you said, how do you know what to look for? I don't know. I can't tell you that on the video. I know what I look for. And I know that since I'm looking for that, I find it. Right. And I know when I meet people, I can quickly tell if they're the kind of people I'm looking for. So there's 7 billion people on this planet. There's no reason that 20% of millennials should not be able to find a few of those to be friends with.
No, that's a good point. I think one thing I'll add, we tend to become friends with people we share similarities with.
That's a fact.
So no matter where you live, think about the things you enjoy. For us, we really enjoy exercise. That's one of the things. I mean, we do a lot. We enjoy reading, music, myself, just a whole stuff, business. So naturally, you're going to probably meet people around those areas. You might meet them at the gym. You might meet them. Literally, we were at Barnes & Noble's where we found this Tony Evans Bible, just walking around. And this is a pro tip. We kind of know it, but I just kind of thought about it this last week. Go to Barnes & Noble. Go to your local bookstore.
Great place to meet people.
Go to the section you're interested in, whether that's theology books, whether that's social sciences,
self-help.
All that. You're probably going to meet people, and it's really easy to start a conversation. Hey, you know any good books you'd recommend here? Or whatever it is. And like you said, there's always going to be that awkward phase. I think back to some of my closest friends. It's like, man, our good friend Brennan, if you're watching, Brennan, thank you. I met that guy, no joke. He had the same sentiment about me. He thought, man, this guy is kind of a D-bag.
Just stuck up?
Yeah, well, it wasn't even our attitude. It's like the way we dress. We were very similar. Like, oh, he's probably preppy. He's probably hard to talk to. Now we're good friends. Like, he lives just down the road from us. So that would be my advice: is go somewhere that people like you might go, but also meet other people that you might not think you'd have a connection with. A lot of my close friends hate the gym, or they don't do that, but we share commonalities, similarities in other areas, and it makes it easier to connect.
Yep.
Good friendships, you have to be able to have good conversations. And the way to have good conversations is have stuff to talk about. Good. And so that would be my advice. Whether you're in a small town, big city, you can always meet people. It just comes down to actually going out, making that connection, and taking a risk. Everything in good in life comes from taking a risk. And like you said, if you mess that relationship up, there's 7 billion other people in the world that you can
7 billion
try to talk to. So that's my thought there.
That's great, man. So here's one. I got a question for you. For those of you who have watched all of our episodes, I feel like a lot of times when, and I should say too, just taking this even offline, like Kyle's great at asking questions, and you can have an hour conversation with him, not even on the podcast, but this does translate to the podcast too. But you can have an hour conversation with him and you leave and you're like, the guy didn't even say a word. Like, I was just talking the whole time, which I think is a really good strength of yours, but also I want to make sure I'm mixing in some questions, especially this week. So let's see what I got here. So we talked about how to meet people, and we talked about, where to meet people, and you kind of touched on it briefly, but maybe a little bit more practical and a little bit more vague, because I think that there is a little bit of a distinction between interests and qualities. And that's probably what you're talking about. Like, some of your friends might not play golf, might not like the gym, but there's probably qualities. So
good distinction.
Yeah, if you had to tell me, I don't know, 3 to 5 qualities that are important for you when you're looking for friends, and how you can kind of know when you're getting to know people if they have those qualities.
Yeah, really, really good question, because qualities, that is a very good distinction. I was more so talking about interest, and now the qualities. What's going to allow you to go deeper with someone? And I don't want to steal your thunder because it might be in there, but I might touch on it. But some of the qualities I look for, and it's hard to explain, but it's just, one is humor. Like, I like to joke around, lighthearted, people who can have good conversations. I probably won't go through all 5. I'll just name a couple of my big ones. I would obviously have to say around faith in God, like to have a really deep connection. I'm sure you guys have experienced where you meet someone, they're really cool, fun to be around, but it just feels like you reach a level where you can't go any deeper. And I think a lot of that has to come down to your beliefs and your values. If you don't share that, it's really hard. Not that you can't be friends, not that you can't have really good connections. It's just hard to get to that level where you want to be a deep, intimate friend with somebody. That's right. So I would share shared faith. Humor is huge in me. There's a lot of the things we'd all want, like honesty. Like I want someone who's I can trust. Like trust and honesty, I'd probably put them in the same category. That's good. When I'm giving you information or things about me, I want to be able to trust you. Yeah. I want to know that you have my best interest at heart, that you care enough about me to protect what I'm saying, and just that there's that level of trust. So those are my big 3. I know you said 3 to 5 because I don't want to eat up too much time, but I would say those are some of the big ones that I say. But around the conversation of faith, there's a lot of things that stem from that. Hopefully they're an honest person and stuff that comes with that. But I would say that people who are fun to be around, who don't take themselves too serious, who have a love of God. And then I guess one thing I'll add too is someone who is driven or has goals or aspirations. It doesn't have to be on the same thing. It doesn't have to be like they're pursuing the same things I am, but they have to be hungry for life. And I've just found being around people like you who are like that, our other roommates, it just pushes you to get to that next level too. So just someone who has an idea of what they want to do with their life and they're pursuing something. They're not just sitting around. People who are driven. I've always connected well with those people, and those are the type of people I want in my corner for sure. That's great. So not to kind of dominate the conversation with this question, but those are like, some of those qualities are surface level. Yeah. And some of them are like pretty deep. How, in your friendships, how has that played out? Like, do you feel like it's something where you kind of just know right away? It sounded like with Brennan, for example, maybe you didn't. Yeah. Has there been people where you just felt like that, boom, I'm going to be really close with this person? Or how do you say our viewers are saying, okay, I paused the video, I'm going to get out my pen and paper, do that, write stuff down, you guys, get it out of your head and onto paper. They say, okay, I have my qualities. They have their 3 to 5 qualities. How do they, as they go out in the world, as they're doing their day-to-day life, as they're doing what you said last week or 2 weeks ago, which is realizing miracles happen around people. They're getting around new people. Don't go to Starbucks. Yeah. They're Don't talk to the baristas there. They'll break your heart. Getting around people other than Hannah from Starbucks. So how do they go about
finding out if these people have these qualities?
Yeah, good question. Yes to both your questions. I have met people where instantly I'm like, man, I just feel like there's a good connection. I've met people where it took time to cultivate those relationships. But that would be my advice is there's a common saying, you don't know what you don't know. Don't base what you think could come of a relationship off of your first 30 seconds. Like first impressions are important, but it's the same thing with relationship. You look at people who've been married for 30, 40 years. Sometimes their story is, man, I met this girl or I met this guy. I was not crazy about him. I did not like him. I gave him a third, fourth, fifth chance.
Yeah.
And they grew in that love. So like you're never, I mean, it could get there. I like to get to know someone quickly, but sometimes it takes a while for someone to open up. So I would say don't discount or throw someone out just because there aren't those fireworks in the friendship sense right away. Like it takes time for some people to open up and have those connections. And you grow over time. That's the thing with friendships. You can grow together and get really close to someone, but sometimes, given the season of life you are, you grow apart. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just they've matured, you've matured, where you are at in life are different. And that's not a bad thing. You could still love someone and maybe you just don't spend as much time together. So I would just say, yes, you can meet those people where you feel really connected at first, but a lot of times it's going to take time. So I would just say, take it slow, get to know this person. And this is the biggest thing I'll say, probably the biggest piece of advice I'll say.
Oh, let's hear it.
Probably should have saved it for the end, but, and I'm speaking hopefully for everybody, but my ability to love someone as a friend, as anyone, is really hard to do when it's just Kyle trying to love them. Like you have to know who loves you first, and that's God, the love of the Father. That just naturally pours out. And you can tell someone who's just kind of going through the motions, like, hey, good morning, how you doing? Or you can tell someone who's genuinely wants to invest in you, wants to know you. They don't want anything from you. There's no other motives that they're trying to get something from you. It's just, man, I know how much I'm loved, and I just have this energy. I want to love you and hopefully help you feel that love. So I would just say, if you're struggling to love people or feel like it's hard to connect with people, I would take a look inside and say, man, do I feel loved? And like, God is love. That's literally like one of his definitions. And so that's where hopefully when I'm talking to people or they're talking to me, they can feel that something's different. And it's not Kyle's love. It's the love of the Father pouring through me. So that is
it's amazing,
hopefully answer your question.
It's amazing.
But I would be interested to hear your answer on that same question. I'd have some questions I want to ask you, but I think you can probably shine some wisdom. What are some more so on the quality side of things, and feel free to use some of mine. Please don't. But
I'll try to mix it up.
You mix it up because you have, like, I look at your friend group. I can't think of anyone where it's like, man, why is he friends with them? They're all good quality people. So what are qualities you look for? Because I think it'd be very interesting to know.
Man, I'm just getting over the goosebumps I got from that last thing you said. For real, Kyle's on his A game right now.
That's so just you're hungry probably. It's what that is you're feeling.
But I would say that one thing that's really important for me, and I think you talked about it maybe in the first half, but is just people that are willing to go deep and be vulnerable. I'm a guy who messes up all the time. And like you said, you're being driven. Like, I think that's the flip side of that. When you're driven, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Right. If you're living a safe life, shoot, I have disagreements with my family members. I have stuff that goes wrong in business, all that. And if I feel like I have to be perfect in order to be friends with someone, that's really hard.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I tend to connect better with people that are okay with me being imperfect. Right. I think that's a big one. I'm trying to think. Open-mindedness is huge for me.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I have a really hard time if you're around someone and like they're very quick to say like, this is the way things are and your view is wrong. I like people that are more like, if they disagree on something, that are more like, well, why do you think that way? Or how did you come to that conclusion? Just people that can kind of kick around different ideas. And it doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything, right? But just be open-minded enough and willing to learn and listen and kind of take in some new ideas. Those are big. And then I think the last one I would say, and again, would have overlap with yours. I'm just trying to mix it up. Right. I would say people that are optimistic. I really connect with that.
Can I go back and take that as one of my qualities?
we can both use that.
Like positivity and
definitely
positive outlook.
And you're one of the most positive people I know. So I think that, and you can get that right away. Somebody asked me one time, they said, Aaron, like, how are you so positive all the time when like I've had friends die? I had a stepfather that died. had business ventures that have crashed, whatever, lost thousands of dollars in business ventures. They're like, how are you so positive even when all this negative stuff happens? And I said, I could look at your life and I could say, how are you so negative even though so many good things happen?
Dang.
Yeah. So
that was good.
Yeah.
And they never talked to them again.
They might not have, but I think that's it for me, bro, is that I don't want to be around people that have a problem for every solution I have, or, I have a win and they're trying to tear me down. I mean, I want to be around people that if I call them and I'm a little down, that, maybe they'll stay with me there for a while, but then they'll pull me out of my rut and just look at the bright side of things. Cause I think that mindset is huge. And I tend to gravitate towards optimistic people a lot.
Geez, that was good. And that's actually a perfect transition. So this was not by design, but I think the natural flow is we've established there's a lot of lonely people in the world.
Yep.
We've established the need for friendship, the importance of it from a scriptural standpoint.
Yep.
We've kind of identified how do you meet people? What do you look for? What are the qualities? Now you've made some friends. Let's say you have a good group of friends. What are some things that you should do in that? And I pulled some scripture references, and it kind of builds off of what you just said. In Colossians 3:13, it says, bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone.
Yep.
Forgive as the Lord gave you. Two really important pieces there. One, forgiveness, which you touched on. We're all human. We all make mistakes.
That's right.
I've made countless mistakes. Aaron's made mistakes. But if you can't forgive someone, it's impossible to have a healthy relationship. And that goes for yourself, which we'll touch on here soon.
Yep.
Second piece of that verse that really stood out. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. What I touched on earlier, it's really hard to love someone if you don't feel loved from the Father. Where do you get your source of love? Again, it's a lot easier to forgive someone when you realize how much you've been forgiven, when you've made the ultimate sin. But it's seriously, it's kind of standing out to me. I didn't even think about this before.
This is awesome.
So that's really good. Second thing, Proverbs 16:28. I highly recommend you all read Proverbs. They call it the book of wisdom. Really, really good.
And side note, there's 31 of them. So if you're struggling to read your Bible, no excuse. Read a proverb a day. Literally takes 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It'll change your life.
Proverbs 16:28 says, a perverse person stirs up conflict and gossip separates close friends. I can't tell you how many friendships have been ruined because of something someone said. Word gets out. Aaron said something before the show, and we've all heard is, don't say something that you wouldn't say with that person in the room. There's a time for constructive feedback, but gossip is not that. Gossip's tearing down someone, is saying things behind people's back to make yourself feel better, put others down. It's a bad way to go. It ruins relationships faster than anything probably could. Tears down that trust. And then the last one is
Can I chime in here?
Yeah, of course.
I think, and I would love your take on this, but if you're watching this, I know I am very guilty of this. I hold people to very high standards in my life, including myself. But like you said, gossip, I think that a lot of times when I find myself judging my friends or gossiping about my friends, I'm really judging myself. I would never judge somebody else in an area that I felt really secure in.
Right.
So I just think that's important. If you find yourself judging your friends for a lot of things, maybe examine where are you at in those areas. Because I think that's where it comes from. Like you said, the Father's love fills us up and then we pour that out. Well, it goes the other way too.
Yeah.
There's a spiritual war going on. There's a side of, greed and hate and jealousy and all that coming in, and then that gets poured out. So are you not loving yourself somehow, and then that's pouring out in judgment or in, maybe making jokes? That's something that I really have kind of noticed in the Bible, is that it talks about literally no unfruitful talk should come from your mouth, or unwholesome talk, I think is what the exact wording is. And I think that's huge, and that's big with friends. And as guys, I think that's a huge thing. We joke around, and you and I do it all the time, but I think we've gotten a lot better. I would say the last year probably. Right. I don't feel like you and I are making jokes that tear each other down.
No.
Not even if we're trying to be funny. There's a lot of ways we can be funny and still not hurt each other's feelings and things like that. And maybe you're watching this and you're like, oh, these guys are soft. Bro, I'm secure in who I am. So I'm not trying to be Mr. Macho Man here. I'm trying to give you real advice if you want to make good, lasting, loving friendships. So that got kind of long, but I did want to add that.
Good. No, that is super good, Aaron. I think the biggest thing, as you grow up and mature, it's we use a lot of digs to kind of get, especially guys, I think.
No doubt.
It's supposed to be funny and stuff, but I think you're right. We have done a lot better job about just kind of cutting that out of our relationships. And I think it has at least for myself speaking, I've felt a lot different. Like I never feel like I'm, and I wouldn't either way because I know where your heart's at, but I never feel like I have to be like on guard or defensive or like get back at you because you're very careful with what you say. Even when we get competitive with ping pong and stuff like that, I never have to worry about that. So to wrap up this portion, and this could have even gone back to the beginning of the episode, but it says in Ecclesiastes, 4:9-10, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help him up. And that kind of goes with what you're saying. We need people in our lives and good relationships, good friendships, and people that we can trust to be there because we're all going to go through hardships. Like you were saying, you've literally gone through one of your best friends dying, lost a ton of money in business, just a lot of hardships in life and breakups. We've both been through that. And if you don't have good people who can come around you, it makes it really hard to heal, get over that when you have no one in your corner. So those are just some 3 verses that really stuck out to me. There's a whole bunch more. Just search Bible verses on friendship. You'll find a lot of things. Yeah. And so I just wanted to share that. I think that was pretty interesting.
That's great. So right now we're in the phase where you have friends and now you're trying to, maybe go deeper with those friendships or get to know people more. So I think you asked me, kind of how you go about that, but I guess, okay. So now going back, so you took it from 2 areas, the interests and the qualities, right? So you've done that. You're looking for people that embody all these qualities. You've met them, whatever. What do you think? What would you tell somebody who says, okay, I may be in the early stages. They watch this podcast on Sunday. 2 months from now, they kind of have a group of 5 friends and they want to get closer with all of them. How do you do that?
Yeah. And this kind of goes back to the social media. If you're not intentional in spending time with someone intentionally, it's pretty much impossible for the friendship to grow. Like you can tell what someone values by where they dedicate their time. Take someone's day, break out the time they spent, and you can tell what they value. I always compare this to relationships between a husband and wife. As a husband, you can say to your wife, I love you so much. You're the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. But if all you do is dedicate your time to the golf course, all these other things that are not necessarily bad, it shows where your priorities are. And that goes with friendships. Right. So if you have we'll use your analogy, a group of 5 people and you want to get closer to them, you got to be spending time and doing it intentionally. And you don't have to go spend a bunch of money. You don't have to go do extravagant things, but just invest in them, have a genuine interest in them and a love. And again, it always goes back to, do you feel fulfilled and loved? And if not, it's going to be very hard to connect with people at a deeper level. So to your point earlier, take a look internally, see where you're lacking, where that comes from, and then go out and meet those people. Because there's a lot of people who feel the same way, who want to have genuine connections and love for other people in those deep friendships. But they're probably nervous too. They're afraid to mess up. They're afraid of that awkward phase.
Facts.
It really is. And there's a lot of things you can do, and you're going to find it out as you go. But I think the vulnerability is really important that you touched on earlier. The more vulnerable, and I'm not saying you just like dump all your baggage out on the table right away.
Week 1 or whatever.
Yeah, you got to build that trust with someone. But the more vulnerable you are with someone, the more vulnerable they'll be with you. That's where the connection really starts. Talking about sports and stuff is great, but I think everyone deep down has this desire to go deeper with people, and they just want that. Like I love meeting new people, whether it's at the gym, at work and stuff, but those like quick 30-second conversation. Hey, how was your weekend? Good. How was yours? Good. All right, man. Have a good week. It's
no, what about the 2-minute?
I knew you were going to bring this up. I knew this was coming up.
The 2-minute meet somebody new at church time.
So, okay, I will say, so Aaron and I always joke about, a lot of churches do this before the sermon starts. Hey, turn around, meet someone new around you. And we always look at each other. We're like, oh, no. Because it's always usually the same questions. Hey, how'd you find out about church? What do you do for work?
How long have you been here? Where are you from?
Yeah. So I will say this, that's a great time to meet someone, or at least make that initial connection, and maybe after service, hey, you seem really cool, let's catch up, why don't we go out for coffee, whatever it is. But if you want to have fun with it, think of some questions you can throw in there that no one's expecting. Like, you want to stand out and be different, that's a good way to do it. So just look for those opportunities. You said earlier, you find what you look for. Keep your eyes open for opportunities to meet people, and have fun with it. Like, we're going through life, and so what? Maybe you meet someone, it's awkward at first, something goes wrong. It's like, who cares? Like, just go about life and not care, and goes back to being secure in yourself and not worrying about that. So
that's great.
If you have a group of people you want to get to know, just ask them, meet up with them, hang out. It's going to happen naturally. It just takes time. So hopefully that answers the question in some way.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. And I think too, I've always found that, like, I work hard to make my money. I work hard in a lot of different ways. It's like, what better way to spend my money than buying a buddy a beer?
Yeah.
Ask one of your friends, hey man, you want to go meet at Chipotle? Surprise them, pick up the tab.
Yeah.
It's like, that feels great. It's not like you need to be, going to Manny's Steakhouse with all 5 of your friends and
That would be nice though, Aaron.
and,
Hint, hint.
and dropping, $1,000, but
No doubt.
like that goes a long ways. And like a lot of times too, we'll be Minnesota nice. Like, no, it's like, dude, I want to, like my treat, let me do it. I think that's good. So like you should have enough room in your budget, hopefully. And again, it could be anything. It could be small. It could be a happy hour where you're buying them a $4 drink, or could be like a nice dinner, or, hey, let me order a pizza, come over and let's hang out, let's catch up, or something like that. So I think that's a good tip. But I guess what else do you got question wise?
Yeah, I have some questions, but you spurred something in my brain when you were talking about your last kind of stuff you were talking about right there. But it goes back to the verse I was talking about, the Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, I think it was. Yeah. But there's a couple verses that preceded that right before, and I think it's relevant. It says, there was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. And then it goes into the two are better than one. But it's the word
By the way, that's from the richest man to ever live, King Solomon.
Yeah.
The richest man ever, saying, for who do I toil?
Exactly. And I think we think we'll find happiness and contentment when we achieve a certain level of success and wealth. And while those things can be good and used for good things, like you said, if he's saying this, how much more for us? But it was just interesting. When I read toiling, I think, so there's no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. So what I kind of picture is in other words, his toil, all the hard work he's pouring to achieve this wealth. So you can replace toil with there was no end to his work or hard work, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's right.
And he achieved all this wealth, but he was not content with it. And the verses before that is this man was all alone. He had neither son nor brother. And same thing, if you have no friends or relationships, you can have all the money in the world, you can achieve all the success you want and still feel empty inside. And so that's just the important relationships, and also the relationship with the Father. You can achieve all these things. You can have worldly friends, but if you don't know the true Father who provided all this stuff with you, you're going to feel empty, alone, and discontent. So it was just something that came to my mind, and I read this earlier, and I just thought, man, this is like perfect fits this. So
that's great.
That's all I wanted to say on that. So
very good.
A couple questions left for me, and I know you had a really good one just around. I think it was your last question you asked.
Yeah,
I want to say it.
Let's cap that one. Let's save that for the end.
So we'll kind of break it up. I know you didn't want to talk about this one a lot, but I think it'll be a fun and interesting conversation.
Break it up before we get to the heavy hitter.
Yeah, I think you know what's coming here. And I think you guys are all appreciated because I think we've all been faced with this before.
Yep.
The question everybody's been wondering.
Oh, boy.
Can girls and guys just be friends? Boom, boom, boom.
Bro, that's a great question, and I'm glad you're going to answer that for our viewers, dude.
Yeah, so we're going to leave it there. We'll see.
Episode 5.
Yeah, come back for the answer.
All right, I'm like the kid in class who's nervous, so I'm going to go first because I feel like there's less pressure if you go first.
Well, if you mess up, I'll probably mess up, and they'll remember me last.
Or like I'll give a quick answer, and it'll be short, and then they'll only remember what you say. Right. So, okay, I will preface this with, in life, I think everything is possible. Okay. And I think everything is possible to some degree. And if you know me, you know that I say things like that before I preface going against it, which in my view, and this isn't just a theory, this has just been my lived experience.
Yeah, life experience.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's really, really difficult. But, big but, is that you have to have like very clear communication and purpose. And I know we talked about this before, so this is probably going to make it tough for you to answer after this, but similar to like we were talking about knowing the qualities you're looking for, I think that, okay, say that plays out and someone has all 5 of the qualities you're looking for. Naturally, you're going to have deep conversations. You're going to be getting into vulnerable subjects. I just think that a very high majority of the time when that happens, one of those 2 people in that setting are probably going to feel some sort of attraction to each other.
Sure.
I have female friends. I have female friends I'm not attracted to. But I will say almost all the time in those situations, I think at one point or another, either like people were asking us like, do you guys like each other? You know, and I don't know. I'm curious to hear what you say. That doesn't mean that if you're a guy watching this, that you should go out and only look for male friends. I would just say too that I've seen a lot of sticky situations where maybe one person has an idea. And I think guys too, a lot of times we say, you know, and I think this is really good. This will be the takeaway. If you're interested in a girl as more than friends, just tell her that. She might be, she might not be. And you don't have to like have it be this world altering thing. You could just literally be like, hey, you know, you're really cool. I really enjoy getting to know you more. It seems like we click on a lot of things. Like, I just want to let you know, like, I could see you being someone I'm more than friends with. I'd love to go grab a drink or go XYZ. And like we said before, it's scary. It's awkward. I don't think anybody's ever asked anybody out in the history of the world where it hasn't been a little awkward.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of it. But quote I'm thinking of, this isn't biblical. I think it's from a guy named Joseph Campbell, says, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." So I think where it gets stingy is when I'll throw us as men under the bus. And I know for a fact I've done this countless times when I was younger, when I was very insecure. You know, I'm just going to be friends with her and just be very nice. And eventually she'll realize, like, I'm a great guy and we'll be happily ever after. And that is not the way it works.
Right.
Women appreciate, just as all people do, people who are clear and honest and direct with their communication. Doesn't mean you have to be going up to every single girl that you ever talk to and being like, I am interested in you. Like, that is not what you should do. But like, get to a point where you're comfortable enough just having.
I wasn't ready for the robot voice. I want to go on.
You were ready for the R2D2.
I was not ready for that.
But I think it's important to get to a point. I said I was going to be short. This is probably the most I've talked the whole episode.
It's all good, man.
But just get to a point where you can be clear. Even if it's just a guy that you're meeting and you think that they're really cool. It's in our culture, it's weird. Like, hey, bro, you seem like a really cool guy. I'm excited to get to know you more. Like, that seems so weird even just to say. Like, I know for a fact some of my closest friends, either I've said that to them or they've said that to me.
Right.
And, like, it means a lot, you know? Like, as guys, obviously, we're not as, like, tuned into our emotions sometimes as women are. But, like, we don't dislike a nice compliment or just, like, a guy just saying, like, hey, man, you seem really cool. I'd love to get to know you better. Yeah. So that's how I'll wrap mine up. I'm really excited to hear yours. I think that it's possible. In my lived experience, it's very difficult. But I think the reason it's difficult is because one of those two parties doesn't clearly define what their intentions are. And ladies, I know you're watching this.
Talk to them, Aaron. Speak some truth to these ladies here.
I almost feel like I've heard from more ladies than guys, which is interesting for a show called Men of the Kingdom. But ladies, one thing I think you could really do that would help out is the same thing. Obviously, like, yes, men should be leading. Men should be doing that. But, like, if you're interested in a guy and maybe you're just friends right now, like, tell him. It may be breaking news to you, but a lot of times we're clueless. We're just clueless. So true. I think that's a great tip for men. Be honest, be direct. Women, don't be afraid to be the same. So that's all I got on that, man. What do you got?
Yeah, I have a lot, but I want to follow up on your last thing. Do you think it's like a pride thing? Maybe there's two pieces to it. Why no one wants to admit their attraction for someone first? Do you think a pride thing? Well, I don't want to be looked at as weird. Or do you think it's a fear thing? Like, man, if I express my feelings and it's not reciprocated by either party, then I'll feel stupid. It might add awkwardness. What do you think that is? That people are always afraid to just be honest and say, hey, I find you attractive. Let's go on a date or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it, bro, is like, I don't know about you. I was never taught how to do that. I just wasn't. Like, I literally didn't know. If I thought a girl was attractive, I did not know what to do for most of my life.
You do the natural thing. You slide into her Instagram DMs and you try to go on a date that way.
Right, as we're just talking about not being on social media. But I think for me, like, I genuinely just didn't know. A, I didn't know how to ask a girl out. B, I was really insecure.
Yeah.
C, it's really scary. And D, I think that we're fed a lot of, for lack of a better term, literally just like bogus, like Disney movies and all that. And not to say like God totally can put that perfect person in your life.
Sure.
Literally, I think is exactly what happened to me.
Cool story. We'll have to tell that one day.
Yes, we will have to tell that. Story. But at the same time, I think that we're just fed a lot of false narratives around like how relationships work and what we see in movies where guys act in a certain way where maybe they're that friendly guy next door and then all of a sudden they fall in love. And I don't know. In my life, that's never been the way it's worked. In my friend's life, it's never been the way it worked. For my friends that are in great relationships, one person just said to the other one, "Hey, I'm into you. I think you're cool." And it kind of naturally went from there.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I just wanted to get your opinion. So the question, can girls and guys just be friends?
Sit back and relax, baby. You're on the clock.
Could be a long one here.
Let's go.
So this is an interesting question that I thought about a little bit, because for you, those of you who don't know me, I actually have a pretty large group of friends that are girls.
Yep.
Out with them, maybe once a week whenever we can get together. To your point, so think about it this way. Sorry to spit on your iPad there.
It's all right.
What is really the difference between a friendship and a relationship with a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife? It's usually that sexual intimacy and that attraction. But you're still looking for a lot of the same qualities. You want to be able to connect, be vulnerable, trust that person. So like you said, when you're just going to be friends and you share those same qualities, and she's a girl, you're a guy, say she's a good-looking girl, it's almost impossible not to have some sense of feelings for her. Maybe you suppress that and you never tell that to her. But I've experienced it where I try to be friends with certain people, and I either develop feelings, they develop feelings, and it can put a damper on the relationship if not handled in a healthy way. I think we've been able to talk it through, kind of come to a mutual agreement. Like, right now, the phase of life we're in is just not right. So it's a tough question, because I do have a lot of friends that are girls. I think it can be possible, but I think you have to have the proper boundaries, and you both have to be on the same page on what you're looking for.
Yep.
And I don't think it's necessarily bad that you develop feelings for her. Naturally, you should. Like, if they're someone that you're really close friends with, it means that you share a lot of the same qualities and values, and it's a good thing. That's the type of person you're looking for. So I think you are right. I think it's almost always going to happen that one will develop feelings, and maybe it's both develop feelings, but not at the right timing, and it can just kind of complicate things. Or maybe the girl's in a relationship with another guy, but you guys are really good friends, or vice versa. So that's not the most clear answer. I think it's possible. But to your point, it's like, if you are feeling that girl and you think she is a type of girl you'd be into, I think it's worth risking a future friendship with her to pursue that. Because I think a relationship with a girl who could be your wife or could just turn into your wife is so important, as like what we're all searching for. So I think it is worth taking that risk. So if you are in a relationship with a girl that you're interested in, I think it's time to ask that question. So I think it is possible. I've experienced, like you said, the let's just be friends talk. Oh, I've given the talk. I've received the talk.
It's not a great talk.
It's not a good talk.
We're not fans of that talk.
No, we don't like that talk.
We want to either be friends where we both know we're friends, or we want to be more than friends, and we're fine either way.
Yeah.
But okay, I didn't mean to cut you short.
No,
but I think we got to get to the heavy hitter.
Oof.
At the end of the day, we're men of the kingdom. We're not just out here trying to get these guys girlfriends, get these girls boyfriends. We're out here trying to advance the kingdom. So let's get back to that. So Jesus in Matthew, among many other places in the Bible, commands us to love our neighbors as ourselves. You talked about this before. The two small parts at the end, as ourselves, which implies that step one, love yourself. Step two, love your neighbors. So this is what I want to finish with, is how do we do that? And what does loving ourselves while being great friends look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't have the verse offhand. And I did touch on it a little bit earlier, where you have to feel like you're loved. And where does the source of love come from? And that's God. And I think to your second question, how do you be a good friend can you repeat it one more time? How do you...
Yeah, so how do you be a good friend? How does loving yourself while being a good friend, what does that look like?
Yeah. So there's a lot I could say on this, but one thing that came to mind is taking time for yourself. And a lot of times that can seem selfish, and maybe people think, well, why aren't they spending time with me? And I can't remember where it's at in the Bible. I'll have to look it up, where God had to remove himself from even the disciple stuff to spend quality time alone.
Yeah.
It wasn't with himself. It was with...
Where he was alone in the wilderness?
Yeah, with the Father. He was still communicating with God. And that's the same thing for us. Like, if you want to be filled up so you can pour out on other people, it starts with being filled up, and that takes quality time, spending it in the Word, praying, doing those things.
Yep.
And sometimes that, like we talked about in previous episodes, we're only given a certain amount of time in the day. You're going to have to make sacrifices at times. You're going to have to give things up. You might have to say no to occasion or two, and that might come across as selfish to some people. But in order to further those relationships and love deeper, you have to take that time. So that's kind of where I think when you ask that question, how do you have good relationships while still loving yourself. And I think it's a balance between your priorities, but it always starts with God, you, and then you pour out into other people. So
That's awesome.
There's a lot more I could say on that. I do want to get your thoughts on that because I think it's a very important question, because I think there's a lot of people too who suffer right now with just that lack of self-worth and their love for themselves, and where that comes from, and how do you get over that. And as a culture, there's a lot of things that plays into that, I'm sure. And I just know there's a lot of people in my circle or people I learn about that feel that way about themselves, and it's sad to see. So I want to get your thoughts on it, but that's kind of where my mind goes.
That's great.
Right away.
Just for reference to the Jesus in the wilderness, also in Matthew chapter 4, verse 11. So that was when Jesus was in the wilderness. Yeah, so if you want to read Matthew, would recommend.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn to the bookshelf here because I actually saw this book right before we came on, and I'm going to reference another book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Awesome book. Highly recommend. And I think that taking a different spin on it, to love yourself, you also have to know how you receive love. And the 5 love languages breaks it down into 5 different types of love. I'm not going to get into all of it. We'll link a Amazon thing in the description if they want to buy it.
Right.
But for me, for example, like my top love language is words of affirmation.
Yeah.
So even like all jokes aside, when you gave me a compliment about having a lot of great friends, like I literally get like tingly good feelings. And some people, like they might not. They might be like, what does this guy want from me or whatever. Right. For example, my girlfriend's love language is quality of time and physical touch, meaning that I can be saying nice things to her all day long, but if I'm not, holding her hand or putting my arm around her and like carving out time in my schedule to where it's just us, even if we're like in a group of people and we're like hanging out with friends or family or whatever, she can kind of feel disconnected from me if it's not like just our time. Because there's certain things that, whether it's friendships or relationships, that you're only going to talk about with that person.
Yeah.
Sure. If you and I are going through a tough life circumstance and we're around a group of people we kind of just met, I don't want those people to know my deep stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is learning how you're loved. And for me, for example, like the words of affirmation, like that's something that I can really do to love myself better, is talk nicely to myself. Give myself those pats on the back so that I don't have to, have other people. And for my girlfriend, for example, is scheduling that quality time with herself. So I think that's really good. Do you have any kind of closing thoughts? We got 2 viewer questions last week.
Oh yeah.
And I just remembered I wanted to run those by you. Yeah. So if you have any closing thoughts on the question, because I think it's big. One of these questions, the follow-ups were serious. One of them was kind of more funny. But if you have any closing thoughts, I know that you said there was a lot that came to mind. So
yeah, I think I'll leave it there. I just think that's the point I really want to drive home, and I feel like a broken record repeating it, but you got to spend time in the Word. And I just know from past experience, it's really hard for me to pour out, love people, and love myself when I don't feel loved. And like the ultimate source of love, the one that never changes, and I'll keep saying that, is the love of the Father for us, like literally sending His Son to die for us. Like what greater love than someone who would literally lay down their life? And there's actually a verse in the Bible. I should have wrote it down. I had it in there.
Don't worry. Your boy's got it.
Hold on here.
It is John 15, verse 13. Greater love no one has than thy that lay his life down for a friend. You are my friends if you do what I command. Yeah.
So that's the ultimate sacrifice, laying down your life. And I think in any relationship, to go deep, you have to be willing to sacrifice. So that's all I want to say. I want people to know God, love God, and feel that love. So that's all I will say on that question. So let's get to the viewer questions. I'm really excited. I don't even know what these ones are.
Let's go. All right. Our first viewer question comes from our good friend and I would say the MVP of the Welcome Team, bro. You know who the MVP of the Welcome Team is?
Lay it on me.
Steve Tuttle.
Did he? I didn't even know he commented.
Steve Tuttle.
Man, I gotta
sent us a question,
get ready for this.
Which, Steve, if you're watching this, man, every week Kyle and I walk into church. Usually, what we're talking about is how fresh Steve's haircut was.
I will say that,
and that's facts.
I know a lot of people with some pretty nice hair. Steve is probably up there. Steve, I don't know what you're doing, man. Keep doing your thing.
Keep doing it.
If I look half as good as you when I'm that age, I'll be very content.
Ditto. Okay, so Steve didn't even really lead a question. He just said 2 simple words that I know are near and dear to you. This is what he wanted us to talk about. Chocolate milk.
Let's go!
Chocolate
milk. Did he actually?
All he said is chocolate milk. Talk to me about chocolate milk.
I could probably do a whole episode on chocolate milk. So here's the story.
For your guys' viewing pleasure, we will never do that. I promise
Yeah.
you.
Man, we lost all our subscribers. So for any of you who follow me on Instagram at Kylantis, you will see I have a stories section dedicated to Quick Trip chocolate milk. The brand is Nature's Touch. I don't know where it all developed. On my way home, I probably hit 4 different Quick Trips, and I'm a huge chocolate milk guy, and I think it started one day. I tried the chocolate milk, and I'm telling you, there's some things you can put into words, but it's things you can't understand until you try it. Go buy one and try it. So it's kind of a running joke. Everyone knows my obsession with chocolate milk. It's all over my social media. Steve commented that. Probably one of the greatest comments on our videos. So that's all I have to say. It's one of my loves.
All right, so that's number 1. Give me number 2 and 3 chocolate milk. We don't have time for description, but just number 1, 2, and 3.
Number 1, Nature's Touch.
Boom.
From Quick Trip, you can get it. Number 2, you're going to have to go to Kansas City, I believe it is. There's a brand called Chateau. I think it's S.
That sounds like a wine, bro.
ATTO. It comes in a glass bottle. You can return the bottle and get some money back for recycling the bottle.
Elite chocolate milk mind. Right
very, very good. And then the third one's tough. Okay, I will say this. This one's coming out of left field. I can't remember the brand off the top of my head. If you go to Aldi, it's in the organic section, not in the milk section. I've tried it recent.
Is this the one with the brown cow?
Yeah, very, very good. It was a sleeper. I was like, I'm going to try this. I'm very glad I did.
Yeah.
Quick thing on chocolate milk. It's not always about the flavor.
This man loves this milk.
It's about texture, consistency, packaging, and pricing. Those are the categories I break it down to.
Wow.
So you can have a really good tasting, but if it's too thick, too rich, you can't enjoy it. So it depends on your mood. It's like wine. Do you want like a super fine wine? Do you want a sparkling wine?
Wow.
That's up to you. That's what I'll say on
Your
chocolate
love
milk.
for chocolate milk is too thick. Okay, so this one's more serious. We only have a couple minutes, but Julie Denning, I think is her last name, from SMSU.
Yeah.
Her question was, how do you get out of a rut? I'll try to provide, and just like the rut in the sense of like my days are wake up, work out, go to bed.
Yeah.
I'll answer it really briefly. You can kind of chime in, and then we'll kind of take her home here. I would say, first of all, examine what the things are that make up that rut. If they're all good things, not bad. Like you said, you can tell what your priorities are by what your schedule looks like.
Yeah.
So if you're investing in, close friendships, like the kind of people we talked about for the last hour, great. Gym, I know you mentioned that, not a guy, the place. If you're going to the gym, that's a great thing. If you're going with a guy named Jim, that's just ironic.
That's still good too.
That could be, but be sure to be honest with him.
Yeah.
About
Not just friends
Yep.
if you don't want that.
So that I just say examine it, but then again, maybe make a list of like, what's your ideal life, an ideal day. I'm just a big believer. The more you think about what you want, the more you're going to get it. And mix it up. Mm-hmm. Just like maybe try working out in the mornings, try working out at nights. If you usually lift weights, try running. I don't know. I just say add variety and don't be afraid to literally write down what your dream day would be and then work towards that. Maybe you can only add a little bit per day, but hey, an hour more of your dream day is better than nothing.
Yeah. No, that was a super good answer, Aaron, because I think we've all felt like that, especially at the time we're living now. Mm-hmm. You and I work from home. A lot of people are working from home, and it seems like you get up, maybe you go work out, you work, come home, you eat supper, maybe you watch a show, whatever your thing is. And it's really easy to get into that pattern, especially when there's not a lot of other things going on outside.
Yeah.
And then you add winter on top of it when it was 2 weekends ago.
30 below.
Negative 30 degrees. It's really hard to do things. I find myself in a rut a lot. And I think you touched on it, but one thing when we brought up this question before, I have heard this viewer question, is you won't feel dissatisfied or like you're in a rut if what you're doing aligns with what your goals are, like you said. For an example, say your goal is to get really physically fit. You want to bench XYZ or whatever your fitness goal is. If where you're spending your time is at the gym, you're seeing progress stuff, you'll be fine. You'll spend as much time as you want there as you can. You won't feel like you're not prioritizing or not doing what you were meant to do because it aligns with what your goals and aspirations are. So I would say advice number 1, evaluate what are your goals, what do you want to be doing, and is where you're investing your time doing that.
Boom.
And I understand sometimes where you're at right now and where you have to spend time, where your commitments are. Maybe you're working a job right now for 8 hours a day where you're not super passionate. That's not where you want to be your whole life. And you have to make that time. Again, sacrifice. Maybe there's an hour in the morning, like you said, you can cut out, get up earlier, stay up later to start moving closer to where you want to be ultimately. I heard a thing, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard it, says that, being rich is not the end goal. We just talked about wealth and stuff, but being getting rich is really hard. Being poor is really hard. Choose your hard. So you're going to make sacrifices in anywhere in your life.
And that could be like with fitness too. Being healthy is hard. Being unhealthy is hard.
Exactly.
Having friends is hard. Having no friends is hard.
100%. Very good point. Probably should have used one of those instead of
All good.
the rich. But yeah, that's the thing is like, we're going to go through struggles in life. There's going to be those hard times. It just depends where your goals are and where you're lying. And the second thing I would say, we talked about this, I think it was on the last episode with the Starbucks thing. It's a funny story. Change your routine. Throw a curveball in there. Like I was working from home. I was doing very same things. I said one day, thanks to Aaron kind of pushed me, you know what? I'm just going to go to Starbucks and work. Switch up your environment.
Which, by the way, that was at night. Like that wasn't your job. You just did that for an hour at the end of the day.
Yep. Editing photos or something. So just switch it up. Do something different. You never know what can happen when you take that opportunity. Who you're going to meet. That goes with friendships. Like you just don't know. So it can be very hard when you're in that rut, but there are things you can do to break it up. Align your goals with what you want to do. Identify what you should be spending your time on. That's instantly going to make a difference in your life and the way you feel towards your day. And then just try something new. We're given the same amount of time in a day, but go somewhere, new environment. Try something you would never try or never thought about trying, and you just never know where it can go. So very good question.
Could be a new chocolate milk.
Could be. That would be one of the greatest things that could happen. So Julie, thank you for that question. I know that's a lot of people feel that way, especially right now, and hopefully that advice from Aaron and myself helps a little bit. But again, if you have other questions that you want us to answer or take a shot at, leave them in the comments. You can shoot us a message. We love the viewer questions because not only do we like talking about it, I think it adds a lot of value to other people who are listening. So that's all I have to say. I'm going to let you shut it down. I feel like very fulfilled with this episode. I feel like we talked about a lot of things we wanted to talk about. We hope it resonated with you all watching. And just feel super blessed.
I think that we kicked around the idea. Our first couple episodes were under a half hour.
Yeah.
And we just shut down feeling like, man, we had, we didn't squeeze all the juice out of the fruit, so to speak.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah. And so now I just feel good, man. This is the best I have felt ending an episode. And if you're new here and you watched all this, we didn't even really do an intro because we're 4 episodes in, so we're kind of getting away from that. But we're the men of the kingdom, and we're here to kind of try to teach you how to live your life and succeed based on God's design for your life. So if you watch this far, we release new videos every other Sunday. So be sure to subscribe, be sure to comment, be sure to send us any ideas that you have for either topics or questions or future episodes. But that's all we got for tonight. Until next time, keep advancing the kingdom.
Thanks.